Okay, well, welcome back.
Thanks.
It's been a while since I met with you. We've had to reschedule this a couple times, but finally here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, a little bit of recap of the last session. You came in and we weren't really sure why you were here, and we kind of got down to that. Your husband was the one that kind of sent you here because you were having some like forgetful behaviors. Has anything changed since last time? Have you noticed any changes in your behaviors?
Um, I think now that we've talked about it, I start noticing some things now that I didn't think of before. Like it's been brought to my attention a little more. But it's hard. But
So, have you talked with your kids about this yet? And I know something that's kind of been made known is, we know with this diagnosis, it's very rare. A lot of people your age don't get this type of news, and it is kind of life altering. But have you had a talk with your kids or anything about why mom's been acting a little different, or have they said anything to you that's been different?
they haven't really said anything. I mean, sometimes they'll be like, tell me a story about what happened at school or something, and I don't really recall that. So they'll be like, Mom, I already told you that, and I'm like, oh well, let me hear it again, and I'll just kind of like play it off. I haven't like sat down and talked to them about it yet. I think I'm gonna wait on that for a little bit and get used to it myself first before I, you know, bring it up to their attention because I don't know how they're gonna really react to it. So.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit, and now that we know that you actually have, been to a doctor and have talked with your husband and family and have had like things laid out, and you know that you have early onset Alzheimer's, only being 42, I'm sure that's hard to
Right.
process. So we're going to backtrack a little bit before some of this stuff happened. So tell me about your early years of when you and your husband got married. Like, do you have any memories that really stick out to you that are like really happy?
I think I definitely like recall like my wedding day. I think that was a really exciting time. Um, but it's hard to kind of like remember like way before then. Kind of I guess when we first met, and I mean I here and there I'll kind of like remember, but like if someone were to ask me, like how'd you meet, where did you meet, kind of stuff like that, I don't know if I'd be able to put all the pieces together for that. But
So some details are kind of foggy. You
Right.
can only pick here and there type things. Okay. Um, do you really remember when your behavior started changing? Like, were you aware of that, or how did your husband kind of bring that to your attention that some
Yeah.
things were concerning to him?
I definitely didn't realize it at first, like at all. He would, like I said, like with my kids, like he would tell me something that happened at work, or he would like bring up something that happened a couple weeks ago at a family function or something like that, and he would like say something, and I'd be like, oh, like that happened, and he'd be like, you were, kind of there, and it's that type of stuff. I was like, oh, like I just have a bad memory, kind of stuff like that. But it didn't. He said that it started happening a lot more frequently, where I wouldn't recall things that happened like a couple weeks ago, or like small things, but like things that people should kind of remember, I would think. And he just kind of said, like, I think we should, this is kind of happening frequently. I think we should go see someone about this. And I mean, I was hesitant to it at first because I was like, there's, nothing. I'm fine. I'm just, I'm just forgetting. That happens to everybody. But I didn't realize that it was, early onset. But
Okay, can you be a little more specific and relay some things to me so I can understand, like, what type of things you felt you were forgetting?
I think like I said, like I think they were kind of smaller things I was forgetting. Like I forgot that, we talked about me taking the kids to school one day, and I was like, oh, I thought like you took the kids to school that day.
Okay.
Or when we went out to like dinner with some friends, and he brought up a conversation that we had had at dinner about what one of my friends had said, and I didn't remember that. And but things that like an important conversation that you would think that you would remember, like it was about like their parents and how they're not doing well, and like it had totally like slipped my mind. I thought their parents were fine and stuff like that. So
So, to break this down a little bit more, and this is hard. This is hard, and I can tell by, that this is bothering you. You're kind of holding your hands. You're a little bit fidgety. So, how does this make you feel when you heard those words that you were diagnosed with this? How did you feel?
I guess kind of, I don't know if the word is like lost, because like I know that later on it's gonna get worse, so I'm definitely gonna, do whatever. So I try and like sit down and recall like parts of my day, like not like I'll sit down at lunch and I'll be like, okay, this is what I did this morning, and like I feel like if I think about it more, maybe it'll help, but I know it's just gonna get worse. So I try and like recall important things that happen, and quite frequently, so that hopefully if I keep thinking about it or keep remembering it, then it'll like stick with me, so I'll remember it like later down the road. But I mean, I know that, it is really hard, but there's really nothing that I can do about it, so.
Are there times when you recall yourself being more forgetful than others, or like when this is more frequent?
Like situations where it's more
type
frequent?
of things that maybe like, I don't want to say trigger memory loss or anything,
Right.
but like, do you feel like there are certain parts, or certain things that are harder to recall versus others, or like activities that you do throughout the day that you have more trouble with now?
I think definitely, like, I used to be, like, and now I've kind of taken a step back, but I used to be, like, busy, busy, busy all the time. Like, I would have, like, my schedule of everything that I had to have done. Like, I'd go from one event to another, to another, to another, and now, like, someone will be like, hey, like, we have this coming up, and I'll be like, yeah, and I'll, like, say I'll write it down later, and then I forget to write it down, so it's like I'm starting to, I guess, be less reliable, because I used to be, like, on top of everything. I would, all that type of stuff, and now it's getting harder to remember to put things, on my schedule, and like, so I'm, forgetting my kids' activities and games and stuff like that, just because like I forget that I wrote it down, or that they're happening and stuff like that. So I think what I'm trying to do now is like have my schedule with me at all times, so when someone like says something, like I write it down, so like I'm not gonna forget, because I look at it all the time. But definitely, like, I would remember, like, oh yeah, I have my son's game tonight at 6, and now it's more like I don't even know that I have anything, unless I'm like looking at my schedule and I know that this is where I have to be if I wrote it down a long time ago. So definitely, like, keeping track of my daily schedules, I think, getting a little bit harder. I'm still, remembering, my daily activities, like, that I do every day, like brushing my teeth and stuff like that. But when it comes to, I guess, extracurricular stuff that I'm supposed to attend, or that I said I was going to, like,
Routine wise,
Yeah.
does it surprise you when you see that stuff that you write down, and do you feel surprised?
Yeah, for sure. I'm like, I wrote it down, so like, now that I know that I have it, I know I wrote it down for a reason. But sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I wrote that down right, or if, it's weird, I guess, to look at it and it just kind of pops up, and I'm like, I didn't even know that was tonight, or something like that. So
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that this has taken a little bit of a toll on your life, but not so much to where you were aware of it.
Right.
Until your husband lives with you, he helps you. You guys co-parent. It sounds like you have a pretty healthy relationship since he sat you down and started pointing these things out.
Right.
But as for like family life, what type of effect do you think this has had on him?
I definitely think it's had a pretty big effect on him, and I know that it's only gonna, get worse throughout. So, I try to, like, I think I can definitely see him getting, aggravated sometimes when I ask him something and he's like, you already knew this, or something like that. I definitely see, like, his aggravation, kind of, but he knows that it's, like, not anything that I can help. So, like, And I, I take it with a grain of salt, like how he's reacting, because we're going through this together. Like it's affecting both of us, and so we're trying to take it slow and see how everything works out. But he's doing like a really great job at, keeping me on track and reminding me of things when he's told me a million times and stuff like that. So.
Do you feel like your communication is where it needs to be? Do you feel comfortable with talking to him about how you feel, or do you feel like you're better, I don't want to say, but more comfortable in here to where you can kind of have someone relay things back to you?
I definitely think it's a little bit more comfortable in here just because, like, I feel bad talking to him about the things that I've, already brought to his attention. And I don't want it to, like, get him aggravated again or anything like that. So I try not to, like, bring up those types of issues. Like, if I ask him a question and I've already asked him a million times, then he answers it and I just move on. Like, I don't sit there and say, like, we don't have a conversation about the fact that he just repeats and we move on. But he's definitely, like, he kind of goes through my schedule with me sometimes, and he's definitely helping with the kids a lot more with their games, making sure that I know when they are and stuff like that. So
that's good. So one of the things that is important about us meeting is I want to help you be able to set some short-term goals. So whether it be just for you or for your family life at home, to kind of help you get to a bigger goal, because I wouldn't say there's necessarily a solution, to your diagnosis, because as the way medicine and things are going right now, there's not really a cure. And I'm sure that's hard to swallow, because you've mentioned it several times that this is just going to progressively get worse. And it takes a lot. I just want to reinforce, it takes a lot to even be able to come in here and sit down and talk to somebody. Again, it's going to be a little different talking to your husband, because he's the one that lives with you and will go through this every day with you. But that's a strength I want you to know that you have coming forward and facing this rather than trying to hide from it, because this is scary. I mean, it is, and so that's going to kind of be one of the goals throughout our sessions, is to help you not only cope with what has happened, but kind of move forward. So there's going to be some like thinking exercises I kind of want you to do, which, you don't have to sit down and write things out necessarily, but and then there's going to be a more action-based goal that I want to set, and these can totally be short-term, which a goal I had in mind for you was to write things down, little things down, and it sounds like you're already doing that. So when you remember to think of something and you write it down, have you seen any progression or any, like, progress in, like, having little things sitting around that help you remember what you were trying to do?
I definitely think, like, it's almost, I've kind of started, like, I guess, like a little journal, I guess, where every night before I go to bed, I just, like, write down, like, the important parts of my day that I want to remember, like, even, like, small things, but, and then I, like, read a couple pages from past days a night, like, before I go to sleep at night, and I think, like, sometimes, I remember it, but sometimes going back and reading it, I'm like, I remember now that it happened that I read it, but I don't remember before I read it, if that makes any sense. So it helps a little bit, but sometimes I write it down and I know that they happened to me, whether I remember it or not, because I wrote it in the book. So it's helping here and there for, like, some situations that I remember, but of course there's some that I don't. But like I said, since I wrote it down, I know that it happened. So.
Because it's your writing, and you recognize that's still part of you, especially I'm sure with it being your own writing. So I think what I want to do and help you focus on, I'm sure if you're comfortable to obviously meet again. But one thing, there'll be two things before we end today that I want to kind of accomplish. The first thing is set some short-term goals. So coming out of meeting, I'm going to ask you, what would you like to see with us continued meeting? What would you like to get from me that I can help you with?
I guess, like you said, kind of little exercises or things that I can do to help me remember. I think that's, like, the biggest thing. I mean, I know it's going to be, like, hard, and some of them might be impossible to like remember, but that's the biggest thing that I want to remember. I want to do is just like remember.
Okay.
So I think any like I'm willing to try any exercises that you have that would potentially help me remember things. So
Okay, since you're not, this isn't my necessary like specified area of expertise, but I'm kind of here to help you along with the process of coping and that type of thing. But and I also think it's a strength that you have such a supportive family. When we get to the point of talking with your kids, how old are they, if I may ask?
I have a son who is 12, and
Okay.
then I have a daughter who is 7.
Okay, so your youngest one might not understand, but the brain starts to change when you get to be 12 and 13. So whenever he gets a little bit older, it might be good to talk,
Right.
and hopefully time works in your favor. I think we're going to be having a lot of these, going back and readdressing how you feel, because it is important to stay in tune with your emotions.
Right.
So I would say one of the short-term goals, or something that you can do at home, and this can even ease into a long-term thing that you do, is paying attention to your body. So if you start to feel yourself get overwhelmed, you're frustrated because you can't remember what time you had to be somewhere, what doctor you were supposed to call, something like that. Obviously you can call your husband, talk to somebody, but at the same time, something that has worked for other people in situations of stress is sitting down and paying attention to the physical aspects of your body. So a breathing exercise, or sitting quietly and paying attention to your heartbeat, putting your hand on your chest, focusing on the way you breathe, counting to 10, different physical aspects of your body that can bring your mind to a different place,
Right.
and focus on something else, and then trying to reattempt what you were doing. So that's kind of what, thinking wise, I want you to do,
Okay.
something small like that. Because, we're going to meet probably once a week for a while to see how you're doing, because this is still relatively new. And then as for like a behavioral thing, you said that journaling was good, but like when you wake up in the morning, I want you to take like a bright colored sticky note. Go to Walmart, go somewhere and buy like the pink, green, and orange sticky notes, and get the bigger ones, and you can sit them and tape them on your mirror and write the 3 things you want to get done in the morning. So assign a color for the morning, and then for the afternoon, assign like a green, and put it somewhere where you're usually, at your table or something. And then hopefully, by the time your husband's home, you can have that one for the evening of 3 things. So we're going to focus on 3 things for each time of the day that are important, and that will kind of redirect you back to what you want to do.
Okay.
And if I have one last thing, before we wrap up today, because this is kind of a mini session, to just kind of see where you're at.
Right.
This experience, as you said, you seem okay right now, and I'm sure it'll be a different story when you walk out the door and the world's back throwing things at you. But if you had to like rename this, I haven't heard you really say that what you've been diagnosed with out loud, and so I feel like that kind of brings you some discomfort. Am I right about that? So if you had to like rename, and you don't have to give me one now, but if you had to think of like a different way of, thinking of this diagnosis, because this diagnosis is not you, it's just kind of another obstacle that's been added to your life.
Right.
If you had to think of it more in a positive light, rather than something that's like kind of holding your life back, something like maybe a second chance, a new start. It's just all about perspective. I kind of want you to think of this in a different perspective. So, the next time we meet, if you could kind of give me some ideas on what you would want to rename this, experience, then I think we would have something else to go off of.
Okay. Good deal.
All right. Well, I'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you.
That was